Today I'm going to talk about the Jeep Cherokee, and then later, as we're going on, we'll talk about the Jeep Liberty. But first, let's start with the Jeep Cherokee. In 1974, American Motors Corporation came up with the idea of taking a four-door vehicle, a four-door station wagon, and turning it into a two-door vehicle that they called a sport utility vehicle. This creation became known as the Jeep Cherokee SJ. Now, it was pretty apparent that this thing had some utility to it, but there was the question of sport. Why sport utility? Is it just because it has two doors? No. This thing had a wide variety of engine options. The lowest of all was a V6, but you could work your way all the way up to a 401 cubic inch V8 that put out 215 horsepower. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but that was able to force this vehicle to go more than 100 miles an hour, and it was way more than any other vehicle that was like that. So, of course, this thing became sporty. Although the idea was to take a four-door vehicle and turn it into a two-door vehicle, a two-door wagon type vehicle, it only lasted 3 years until they started to offer a four-door version of the two-door version of a four-door version vehicle. So basically you could get the same car you could have gotten 3 years ago. So 10 years goes by, it's 1984, and it's time for a redesign. What AMC came up with was the most recognized Cherokee model of all, and probably the one that you're most familiar with, the Jeep Cherokee XJ. That's because this Cherokee body style lasted nearly 20 years, from 1984 to 2001, meaning that when this Jeep Cherokee came out, Prince's When Doves Cry was on the radio, and Apple's first Macintosh computer came out. And when this vehicle was replaced, Lifehouse's hit Hanging by a Moment was on, and the war in Afghanistan started. That's a long period of time for one style of vehicle. The other reason that this has become so iconic is because it started to replace sedans and coupes and other types of cars as the family vehicle, meaning that this Jeep Cherokee body style was the start of America's obsession with SUVs. The XJ was a unibody, meaning it was lighter. It was able to get better fuel economy. It was able to get 21 miles per gallon on the highway. In 1984, a Ford Escort was only getting 26 miles per gallon. So why not buy the SUV? Nearly 3 million XJs were sold in this almost 20-year span. And 2- and 4-door versions were sold the entire time. However, the 2-door versions became very scarce. And I couldn't find an actual number, but estimates are between 2 and 5% of that 3 million were two doors, and even an even larger portion of those two doors were two-wheel drive. So finding a four-wheel drive two-door XJ is quite rare. The XJ was the end of the Cherokee. It only had 2 runs, but Jeep had to figure out something else to replace the Cherokee with. And what they came up with was something that was very sporty and very utilitarian. It was the best Jeep ever. It was the Jeep Liberty KJ. Yeah, I might just be saying that because my girlfriend owns one, so I gotta be nice to that Jeep. Anyway, the Jeep Liberty was the smallest four-door Jeep vehicle offered until 2007, when the Liberty went out and in came the Patriot and the Compass. The Jeep Liberty was also the first vehicle that Jeep put out that used rack and pinion steering. That's probably due to the fact that it used independent front suspension. However, it was not the first Jeep to use independent front suspension. That's the 1963 Wagoneer that used independent front suspension, but did not use rack and pinion steering. So that's cool. But what we really want to know about is power, right? Well, this Jeep Liberty had some power to it. The biggest engine you could get was a V6. It was a 2.3 liter. Ooh, I know, big. Calm down, calm down. It put out 210 horsepower, which is only 5 less than the almost 6.6 liters from the 401 cubic inch V8 in 1974. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So you may be wondering, why would I even mention the Liberty in a video about Cherokees? Why not just split it up? Well, you Liberty haters, like it or not, the Jeep Liberty is a Jeep Cherokee. I mean, just look at it. Especially when you look at the Jeep Liberty KK. I mean, even look at the door handles on those two. It's almost identical. But beyond just looking the same, they were actually the same, only outside of the US. Why? Well, maybe it's because they thought Americans were stupid and we weren't able to tell the difference between the Cherokee and the Grand Cherokee. I mean, just look at the two of them, they look different. Or maybe it was because it was so far, the Liberty KJ from the XJ, that they didn't want to mix the two together. But outside markets were branded as a Cherokee, so I don't understand. But like it or not, they're the same. And they used to laugh at me because I drive a Wrangler with square headlights. Well, now look at you, Kevin. You're related to a Liberty. And as long as we're talking about vehicles that are related, how about Dodge? They're basically Jeeps, right? Well, at least the Dodge Nitro is. Look at the Dodge Nitro next to a Jeep Liberty KK. The Liberty KK, or Cherokee KK, lasted from 2008 to 2013. It had a very short run, and the fact that it looked like a Dodge Nitro and that they were basically a crossbreed of each other is the reason that they ended it. The CEO of Jeep wanted to end that so that Jeep got its sales and Dodge got its sales, and split it up and ended the Jeep Liberty. Then came a time that all Americans were waiting for. The return of the American Jeep Cherokee. The return of a vehicle that had never been gone anywhere else except for in the US. And this is what master designer Greg Howell came up with. The 2013 Jeep Cherokee KL. And we have Fiat to thank for this. But somehow, despite the way it looks, this thing sold and continues to sell in great volumes. In fact, it sold so well that Fiat Chrysler America had to shut down production of the Dodge Dart and the Chrysler 200 to boost production and keep up with demand of that thing. I don't know why, but don't worry, guys. The 2019 Cherokee looks so much better. And that's all I really want to talk about with the Cherokees that are out now. Who knows what the next Cherokee will look like? But I can tell you one thing for sure. It's not going to look anything like the iconic XJ that we all know and love. Thanks for watching. Check out my channel and leave a comment, please.